stood in the dimly lit living room, the air thick with tension, my heart racing after everything that had just been said. My hands were shaking as I glanced at my brother, who sat awkwardly in the corner, fingers tapping nervously on his knee. We had just finished reading our grandfather's will, an event that promised to be a simple formality, but had spiraled into a storm of resentment and betrayal. The words echoed in my mind. I leave my entire estate, valued at over $1 million, to your brother. Just like that, I felt the world tilt beneath me, a rug pulled from under my feet. My voice cracked when I tried to question it, but the disdain in my father's eyes silenced me. It was as if I had crossed an unspoken line, the one that divided the favored from the neglected. "Mia, just accept it," my mother said, but her voice lacked the usual softness that it wore like a protective shield. It felt more like an order than an offer of comfort. I looked over at her. There was a hint of disappointment on her face. Whether it was directed at me or the situation, I could hardly tell. "What do you want me to accept? That I have been cut off? That I have no place in this family anymore?" It felt surreal, like I was in a twisted version of a reality show where the plot turned dark, reeking of betrayal and favoritism. My brother looked anywhere but at me, avoiding eye contact as if it might ignite my anger even more. "Calm down," he finally mumbled, trying to ward off the impending confrontation. "You're just overreacting." His tone dripped with condescension, a stark reminder of how our roles had shifted over the years. He had always been the golden child, but this was a new low. I overreacted. "Are you kidding me? You don't understand what this feels like, do you?" The words spilled out as my frustration mounted. I could see my father's jaw clench, a physical manifestation of his irritation with the way I was challenging our family's hierarchy. A part of me wanted to scream, to expose the unfairness of this situation. My grandfather had always treated me like his little soldier, but in the end, I was just a footnote in his legacy. "You think this is fair? You think this is right?" I hurled the questions at my brother, but he cowered under my glare, his bravado fading. "I worked hard for this," he protested weakly, but the accusation felt empty. The wealth, the spotlight, none of it seemed to be earned. It was handed to him on a silver platter simply because he was the one who played along with our grandfather's whims. "I'm not just going to disappear, you know," I declared, practically daring him to ignore my presence. "This isn't over. You may have the money, but I have something worth fighting for." I felt a spark within me, reminding me that I could not let this be the end of my story. "What are you going to do? You're not going to throw your life away over some dusty old will." My mother interjected, desperation lacing her words. "We need to stay united, especially now that your grandfather is gone." "United?" I scoffed. "You mean you want me to support the brother who has everything while I'm left with nothing? You think I can go on living like this?" Every time I looked at my brother, I felt rage boiling just beneath the surface. He was always favored. Now it felt like he was the only one holding the purse strings while I stood at the door, begging for scraps. "Maybe it's time to have a conversation about what family really means," I shot back, emotion heavy in my voice. This isn't just about the money. This is about respect, about loyalty. And you really think your grandfather respected you? My brother's laugh was bitter, a broken sound. He saw you as a wild card, someone unpredictable. I'm the stable one. You should have known better. The barbs pierced through my armor, drawing blood. I went pale as his words hung in the air, cutting deeper than anything I had prepared myself for. You think this is stable? You think this is what respect looks like? My voice trembled as I struggled to maintain my composure. Enough, my father growled, rising to his feet, the authoritative presence I had known my whole life returning in full force. This behavior is disgraceful. You are both tearing this family apart at a time when it needs to come together. Come together. You mean come together to celebrate his favoritism? I snapped, my heart pounding as tears threatened to spill. How can we come together when this family is built on lies and favoritism? The fire in the room grew, an unbearable weight bearing down on my shoulders as I realized my father might truly cut me off if I pushed too hard. Still, I felt a new resolve blooming inside me. I would not be this family's silent outcast. As I turned to leave, I felt the weight of their stares, and a sudden surge of defiance washed over me. I will find a way to make my voice heard. You will regret this betrayal. I paused at the door, feeling the words hang like a challenge in the air. My brother's eyes widened, and for the first time, I saw a glimmer of fear flash across his face. It dawned on me then. The paths before us were diverging sharply. I was not going to bend to their will. With that realization coursing through me, I stepped out into the cold, uncertain night, heart racing with a blend of dread and determination. I could feel the storm brewing, and just then I understood it was not just about the inheritance anymore. It was about reclaiming my place in a family that had long since forgotten I existed. And with that thought lingering in my mind, I turned away, ready to carve out my own destiny. Whatever it might take, I felt the weight of the world on my shoulders as I stood in the hallway, staring at the closed door of the family room. The laughter from inside was like a knife twisting in my gut. How could they all pretend like nothing had changed? My brother had just walked in with the news about the will, and I had seen the spark of excitement in my mother's eyes as she hugged him tightly, like she had forgotten who had been the favorite all these years. It made me freeze, a wave of betrayal surging through me. The tension was palpable, heavy in the air, and yet they feigned happiness, blissfully unaware of how much I felt out of place among them. Can you believe she left everything to him? I whispered to myself, my voice trembling. Just 2 days prior, my sister and I had overheard a conversation between our mother and our grandfather. It had rattled me to my core. The business that had consumed our family for generations was being passed down to my brother in a way that felt utterly unfair. It was as if I had been cut off completely, erased from the family legacy, despite all my efforts and sacrifices to prove my worth. How could my grandfather think my brother was more deserving? I shook my head, trying to rally my thoughts, but the anger festered inside me, urgency pressing on my chest. You okay? My sister asked, her voice soft yet cutting through the chaos of my mind. I turned to her, my heart sinking as I glanced at her pale face. You look like you just saw a ghost. I'm fine, I managed to say, but the words tasted sour. My voice cracked and betrayed me, revealing the storm brewing within. It's just, I can't believe it. This whole thing is ridiculous. She nodded, but I could see the conflict in her eyes. You know, they always favored him, she murmured, almost to herself. I felt a flicker of hope ignite in me. We were finally on the same page. It's not right. We both know it. How can they act like this is normal? Because it is normal for them now, I spat back, the bitterness lacing my words as I gestured back towards the door. Look at them, laughing and joking like I am not even here, like I did not work every summer in that store, helping him build it up, only to get thrown aside as soon as there was money to inherit. My hands were shaking, and I clenched them into fists, trying to push the frustration down, but it only made it worse. Let's confront them, my sister said, and I was almost shocked by her conviction. You have every right to know why. We deserve answers. My heart raced at the thought, but a sense of dread pooled in my stomach. And what will that change? They've made their decision. It's set in stone. I paused, memories flooding back of how my brother always got the car I wanted, how my room became a catch-all for his things when they bought him a new one, how my dreams seemed smaller in comparison to his. This favoritism just keeps coming back, doesn't it? I feel like I'm the invisible sister. She sighed, rubbing her temples as if she were trying to fend off an inevitable headache. You're not invisible. You're as much part of this family as he is. Maybe it's time we stop letting them treat us like we're not important. I don't know if I can face them. My stomach knotted as I thought of the confrontation. I didn't want to be that sister, the one who started fights at family dinners. But I also couldn't stomach the idea of rolling over and letting this go. As I looked at her, I saw a fire in her eyes, an anger not just on my behalf, but reflecting her own frustrations over being overlooked. Stand by me, she urged. We need to stand together. What they're doing is not fair. The call for unity ignited a spark in me. Maybe you're right, I said hesitantly, the resolve beginning to build. Maybe we can take this to the table right now. We tiptoed closer to the door, and I could make out snippets of conversation. My brother was boasting about new plans for the family business. I can probably double the profits in just a year, he was saying, and I went pale hearing him, the smugness piling insult on top of injury. I can't believe they let him talk like that, I muttered under my breath, my voice shaking with impatience. Let's go. We are not letting them plan a future without us, my sister said fiercely. And with that spark of determination, I pushed open the door. There they were, all gathered around the table, my mother smiling proudly at my brother, who sat like a king on his throne. The room went silent when we entered. Every eye turned to us. My heart raced, and as I opened my mouth to speak, I felt the weight of their gaze. We need to talk, I announced, my voice more firm than I felt. What's going on? My father asked, eyebrows raised in feigned innocence. But I saw the worry in their eyes. We deserve a say in this, too, I said, my voice steadying with every word. The inheritance isn't just for him. It should be ours equally. What makes him so special? The air thickened as tension crackled between us. I noticed their expressions darkening, but I pushed onward. You can't pretend this is fair. You can't pretend we don't exist. And why should we listen to you? My brother shot back, a sneer on his face that made my stomach churn. That was it. I felt the anger boiling over. And yet, beneath it all, I realized this situation was worse than any small acts of favoritism. This was a continual betrayal that ripped apart the family I thought I knew. Maybe I need to make them see. Maybe if things don't change, I could give them a taste of their own medicine. As that thought settled in my mind, a dark satisfaction chased away the bitterness. I had the power to change everything. The tide was about to turn, and revenge was no longer just a fleeting thought. It was now a plan forming in the back of my mind, and I knew I had to act. The heavy sound of the front door slamming echoed through the empty hallway once more, the kind of sound that made my heart race. I paced my room, replaying the moment when my brother stepped up to our grandfather during dinner, proclaiming that he would be the rightful heir to the family business and estate. It was that moment, the one where he turned to me, a smirk plastered on his face, and said I was unworthy of any inheritance, that lit the fire inside me. My hands shook with anger as the memory sliced through me again. My father's favoritism for my brother had always been clear, but this was over the line. I could still hear my mother's voice cracking in disbelief, pleading with our grandfather to reconsider. "This is so unfair," she had said, her face pale with shock. I froze then, trying to process the reality that the grandfather I thought I knew was now favoring my brother over me, marking me as the less deserving daughter. I had always thought family came first, that blood was thicker than water, but I felt betrayed. My brother didn't just want the business, he wanted everything, and he would take it all, leaving me with nothing. There had to be a way to turn this tide before it was too late. I could feel the urgency crawling under my skin. I did not just want to fight for my position, I wanted revenge, not just to reclaim what I was entitled to, but to make a statement that I was not someone to be mocked or ignored. I glanced at the worn family portraits lining the walls, smiles frozen in time, but the affection caught in those frames felt so distant now. I wanted to break that perfect image, to expose the truth hidden beneath our family facade. The next day, I woke up with a plan. I could not let my brother win this without a fight. If he thought he could bully me into submission, he had another thing coming. I needed to gather information, strategy, and a few allies. At breakfast, tension hung thick in the air, a silent acknowledgement of last night's confrontation, lingering like an uninvited guest. My mother was unusually quiet, stealing furtive glances at me, searching for a sign of my emotional state. My brother, on the other hand, strutted around the kitchen like a peacock, holding court as if he had already won the game. "Get that look off your face," I snapped, my voice sharper than I intended. "You may have everyone else fooled, but I know you're just a spoiled brat." His laughter rang hollow, and he leaned back in his chair, unapologetic, as if I was yet another inconsequential figure in his grand plan. "Careful, sister," he replied, a sardonic grin stretching across his face. You wouldn't want to embarrass yourself more than you already have. You know, the will doesn't just choose favorites because it feels bad for someone. It chooses based on merit. His words stung, and while I choked back mounting rage, I thought about the $1 million estate, the thriving business, and everything I had worked for. Once breakfast ended and my brother left for the day, I wasted no time. I grabbed my phone and called my best friend, the one person I knew would keep my plans under wraps. As her voice filled my ear, I swallowed the lump in my throat. "I need your help," I began, my heartbeat drumming louder with every word. "You remember how my brother is trying to cut me off from the family business and our grandfather's inheritance?" "Of course. That was so messed up," she exclaimed, her voice filled with genuine concern. "What do you need?" "I need you to help me learn everything I can about the business," I continued, ideas rapidly forming in my mind. "I want to see the financials, the documents, everything that can prove I'm just as capable. Then I can confront them all with facts, not just feelings." "Are you crazy? This could backfire," she warned, but I could hear the excitement brewing beneath her apprehension. "What if you make things worse? Or what if I make them right?" I shot back, my voice filled with determination. "If I don't do something now, my brother will suffocate me." As we strategized, my confidence began to grow. I felt empowered, no longer just a sidelined daughter, but an active player in this game. Later that week, I found myself driving to the company headquarters, an unmarked building on the outskirts of town. My heart raced, not with fear, but with anticipation. I slipped out of my car, hands shaking slightly as I marched toward the entrance. Inside, I flashed a bright smile at the receptionist, whose expression turned curious. "I'm here to see the records for my family's business," I declared. She raised an eyebrow, but I stood tall, channeling all the frustration and hurt into my confidence. "Oh, of course," she said, waving me toward a small office where I could see a row of file cabinets. I settled into the chair and began to dig through the papers. I lost time. I scanned receipt after receipt, financial statements, contracts that spoke of loyalty and guardianship. My heart surged with every piece of data I unearthed. Caught up in the whirlwind of my discovery, I was finally piecing together my strategy, a plan forming in my mind that felt more than just revenge, but a chance to reclaim my rightful place. As I reveled silently in this new knowledge, my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen. It was a message from my mother, a simple inquiry if I was okay. I hesitated for only a moment before replying with a curt, "I'm fine." My mind was focused on the goal ahead. Standing up, I felt a rush of excitement. Confidence surged through me. The pieces were falling into place, and soon I would strike back. A moment later, as I closed the folder filled with crucial insights, a smile crept across my face. I was ready to face my brother. I had learned enough. I was prepared to show them all that the underestimated daughter was not someone to be trifled with. My plan was forming, and I could already taste the sweet bitterness of revenge looming on the horizon. Little did I know, that revenge might just draw a knife of its own, and nothing could prepare me for what came next. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife as I stood there, my heart racing and my palms sweaty. I could feel the weight of what I was about to do bearing down on me. My mind flashed back to the countless wrongs that had been done to me and my family, the betrayals that left scars deeper than any physical wound. My sister's mocking laughter echoed in my ears, the way she had favored our brother, the way she acted as if I did not matter. I was ready to confront them all, ready to force them to see the truth. I had meticulously planned every detail of this confrontation, the way my father would arrive late as always, and how the family dinner would unfold. The nerves in my stomach tightened. As I glanced at the family portraits lining the walls, I felt a surge of anger that helped drown my fear. I had been pushed to the side for too long. It was my turn to be heard. I took a deep breath, ready to set my revenge in motion. The dining room table was set for dinner. The sterile white cloth covering it felt more like a shroud than a celebration of family. I took a seat, making sure to sit across from my brother, who was oblivious and engrossed in his phone. I could sense my sister's arrival before I heard her laughter echoing through the hallway. She flung the door open with a smile that quickly turned smug when she noticed the new decor I had arranged. "Wow, Mia, what did you do? Did you finally get some taste?" she sneered, a cocky grin plastered on her face as she surveyed my efforts. "Just wait," I said, my voice firmer than I felt. My mother arrived moments later, voice booming, her presence a bizarre mixture of warmth and tension. "Dinner is almost ready. Has our little princess been treating you right today, sweetheart?" I wanted to scream that all her favorites had been mocked, and my feelings tossed aside like yesterday's garbage. But instead, I just nodded, forcing a smile. My father came in next, looking tired but happy, ready to take his seat at the head of the table. "Let's get on with it, shall we?" I said, almost startling myself with how confident I sounded. Dinner commenced, the room crackling with uneasy chatter and clinking silverware. I could feel my heart racing as I took the opportunity to mention the reading of the inheritance the lawyer had scheduled for tomorrow. Watchful eyes quickly turned to me, and I met my brother's gaze, only to see arrogance flash across his face. "Why do you even care about that?" he scoffed. "You know it's all going to Dad, right?" His blatant dismissal made my hands shake. The unfairness of it stung more than I anticipated. "If you think that, you do not know anything," I shot back, my voice cracking slightly. "Enough of this," my father's deep voice thundered, silencing us as tension thickened in the air. "We're family. We stick together. No more infighting, especially not over something as trivial as my will." Trivial, I wanted to yell. This is everything. What he was failing to understand was that my brother had been running roughshod over me since he was old enough to know how to smirk. I concentrated on my sauce, using it to buy myself time to gather my thoughts. "Mia," my mother called, interrupting my thoughts. "Have you thought any more about your career? Perhaps you might try something more traditional. Your father would love to see you in the family business. There's nothing traditional about dealing with your favorite child getting all the praise," I mumbled under my breath, but loud enough for her to hear. The looks that shot around the table felt like barbed wires stabbing everywhere. My sister's eyes almost sparkled with delight, relishing in the drama brewing as the flames of my resentment grew hotter. Oh, Mia, it is. It's just that Dad is more energetic because he believes in me. I have ambitions too, you know, I blurted suddenly. The confrontation was bubbling over like a pot left on the stove too long. Ambitions you all have chosen to ignore. What are you talking about? My brother hissed, his arrogance cracking. You think you can just take what is ours. Suddenly, all of my careful planning burst out of me. I am tired of being cut off, of standing in the shadows of you two. I am tired of being mocked because I'm not the golden child. My hands were shaking now, but not with fear. This was the moment I had been waiting for. The silence was suffocating. They all wore expressions ranging from disbelief to faint anger, and I couldn't tell if it was my sister or my brother who finally broke the tension. Are you really going to throw a fit over money? The inheritance. That is laughable, she scoffed, her voice laced with mockery. You will get nothing but crumbs, you fool. Actually, I said, feeling the adrenaline pump through me, things are about to change. Before anyone could respond, I stood, my heart racing like a wild stallion. Tomorrow, I am revealing everything our grandfathers will, and a hidden family secret that could alter the course of our inheritances forever. Every eye in the room widened as their faces went pale, realization washing over them. It was my brother's self-satisfied smile that shattered behind the force of my declaration. Don't you dare, he spat, his voice a low growl, anger and fear mingling in his once confident demeanor. Why shouldn't I? I questioned, my voice steadying. You think everything can just stay the way it is forever? No more playtime games. What secret? My mother whispered, her voice shaky, which only fueled my strength. I will tell you tomorrow. I turned on my heel, intending to leave them in the chaos of my revelation. And I expect all three of you to be there. This family drama is far from over. As I slammed the door behind me, my heart pounded in my chest with fear and exhilaration. I had done it. I had finally stood my ground. But as I leaned against the door, I felt the weight of what tomorrow could bring heaviness in my gut. It was not just about the money or the inheritance anymore. It was about reclaiming my worth, and no one could take that away from me now. The confrontation had just begun, and I was ready to face whatever I had unleashed, because I finally had the strength to fight for my place in this family. Tomorrow would be the reckoning they never saw coming. The tension in the room was palpable. A thick fog of regret and fear combined that clung to my skin like an uncomfortable shroud. I sat at the dinner table, my hands trembling as I traced patterns on the polished surface, listening to my mother's voice quaver as she tried to make sense of the decision my grandfather had just announced. The $50,000 inheritance he had promised us was no longer available, cut off due to how things had unfolded over the last month. As he spoke, a chill ran through me, and I could almost hear the whispering echoes of betrayal that hung in the air like ghosts. I don't understand, my brother said, his voice cracking as his chair scraped against the tile floor when he pushed it back to stand. You can't do this. We are your family. Everything we did was to support you, to try and keep this family together. His face reddened with anger, while I felt my own cheeks burn in embarrassment. We had all made sacrifices, walking on eggshells around our grandfather's stubbornness, just to keep the peace, sacrificing our time, our lives. And now, it felt like all of that had been for nothing. I could see the anger swirling in my brother's eyes, standing up like that, fueled by the injustice of it all. My mother looked pale, her hands shaking as they clutched the table, our grandfather's twisted sense of fairness shredding whatever respect she had left for him. "It is because of your actions," my grandfather replied, his voice hard as stone, echoing through the room. "You've decided that rivalry is more important than family." Mia had her chance to step up and play the right card, but instead, she chose revenge. I froze at his words,